like to call to order the Common Council meeting for September 16th, 2013. Can we rise for the invocation, please?
Bow our heads. Gracious God, we thank you for this day. Thank you how you continue to bless us and keep us. We thank you, God, for health. We thank you, God, for strength. We want to take a moment, God, to pray for those persons at Washington, D.C. neighborhood, Lord. God, we pray for their families. Pray for those persons who are in the hospital who got shot. We pray for those families of the deceased. God, we ask you to continue to protect all of us. We don't know when someone's going to walk in anywhere and here any place else, God. We just ask you to have your hedge of protection around us. Watch over us, watch over our families, God, and continue to keep us safe. God, continue to help us to still do what we need to do and continue to do our jobs. Continue to help us to have faith in you to watch over our community and continue to protect our community. Let's protect this council, be with them and watch over them, give them the strength they need. Continue to guide them in the things and the selections and the decisions they need to make. Help them to be the leaders we need them to be. Bless our community and bless all of our leaders, our mayor. Bless all of our staff, all of our first responders. Continue to keep them safe and watch over them. West, please be with our nation, our country. Watch over us and our state government. Watch over all of our officials who continue to lead and to guide us in things that we hopefully will be better for our lives and better for our children's lives. God, we ask you to continue to help us to be the person you would have us to be. And also just continue to be with this meeting. Help us, Lord, to be able to bring the things that we need to bring to the city of Jeffersonville. Help us to continue to do the things to help this community be a community that persons want to come live and stay and to raise up their families. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Councilperson Smith.
Present.
Councilperson Gill. Present. Councilperson Glover.
Here.
Council President Sellers. Here. Council Vice President Julius.
Here.
Councilperson Samuel.
Here.
Let the record show that there are 6 council members present. Councilperson Payne, Councilperson Zastavny, and Councilperson Owen are absent.
I'm in that.
Okay, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Minutes to be approved.
There are no changes. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Are there any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Claims?
I have one hand-carried claim tonight. It's for a loan on a garbage truck for $33,630. It came today, and it's due September 25th, so I wanted to go ahead and get it approved. So that brings the total up to $731,642.42.
Why wasn't that put on our list, Amy? Just curious.
The list has to be turned in by, or claims are due by Wednesday, and I just got this bill today.
Oh.
Okay. Do you have a motion? Make a motion to approve.
You said the payment was coming out. Where was that payment coming out of?
It's coming out of edit. It's already appropriated.
Okay. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the claims, with the hand-carried claim being $33,630.
I'm abstaining.
Are there any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Also have parks claims totaling $78,336.74.
Just a comment. It doesn't affect you, Amy, but I noticed again that there's almost a $3,500 sewer bill for Vissing Park, and that's the second month in a row. So we need to make sure and connect with Paul and figure out what we have to do to get something metered differently. I'm sure that's irrigation or whatever. It's not going in the sewers, I know, but because if we don't watch that, we'll just, at the end of the year, we'll pay $40,000 in sewers and won't even know. So.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. I have a motion and a second to approve the park claims in the amount of $78,336.74. Any other questions or comments?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Report of the clerk.
Got one really quick thing, and I'm going to go to the Board of Public Works on Wednesday, hopefully. But I just want to bring it to your all's attention that, and I do have the money in my budget, this is just a renewal for the BIS for our digital system that we use for all the council meetings and Parks Authority meetings. And it's an annual contract for the $800 for the software updates. So I just wanted to let you all know that I am going to, if it's going to go ahead and get it approved or get it signed, if you're all okay with it.
Okay.
That's it.
No department heads? Is there department heads?
Chief Hedder.
I know, I was waiting.
I appreciate the time. I had sent out an email to you guys today. I don't know if all of you got to look at it. I know that Councilman Smith did. He and I responded back and forth. At the beginning of the year, we had spent some of our 400 series. It was on a couple air compressors. That series ended up going away in the budget restructuring. The total amount of money spent out of 400 before it left was, let's see. Well, I sent it on my phone. It's back there. $2,456.74. I would like to request, that money has to be, since the 400s don't exist anymore, I'd like to have that money appropriated out of Lloyd to pay for those expenses. I'm not sure exactly how that transaction would happen, but from the controller's standpoint, but that money was spent on air compressors, some equipment, gear, suspenders, helmets, gloves, Nomex hoods, boots, and leather shields, and then a couple uniform items, $28, $86, and $440, to come to the total of $2,456.74.
Chief, I had contacted Chief Hedrick too, and I went through his budget, and actually he just moved $10,000 from telephone and to repair of equipment, which ups it to what, $19,000. And I didn't know, I talked briefly to Amy and Heather today about just going ahead and I'm not sure what series it would come out of, but just go ahead and get with them and change it and just transfer the money into the series. What did you take that out of? It came from Lloyd, but what was it? It came out of the 400 series, the 2,000 something dollars?
Yes, it came out of the 451, I think, is the line item that it came out of originally. That's where the air compressors came out of, which is 451 capital outlays. That line item was originally funded for $60,000, and like I said, of course, we know that the 400s went away.
What in supplies general, you've got about $16,600. Would he have to do an appropriation, Amy or Heather, just to move that out to get it out of his 265 series?
We could do a posting correction, remove the expenditure, or we could transfer the appropriation to where it's originally paid.
So these claims were paid before we did the budget reduction. So the claim's been paid.
Yes, they were paid, yes.
They're already paid.
The 265, which is general supplies, is in the 200 series, of course. That I had intended on the last email I sent you, Councilman Smith, I don't know if you had a chance to see, to move to 237, which is down to 4%. So I was going to utilize that money in other garage repairs for truck repairs and things. We're down to 4%. We're down to $600 in there.
Right.
On the email, I guess, I don't know if you got the second email or not, but explaining the money in the 200 series and the 300 series. I
So your plan was to move the money out of the general supplies, which you said there was 16,000?
The up-to-date balance is $15,549 after today. We had submitted a couple of claims.
You want to move that down to a line item to allow for garage repairs and stuff like that, correct?
That's an in-series move. That's something that,
Right.
that's a 200 to 200 series
Yeah, they don't.
move. Out of 265 into 237.
Well, can you just pay that $2,000 out of that then?
The 2,000 I could probably absorb in general supplies. And then the second issue is a little more, that's our, on the emails, $5,220. That's an expense that hasn't been paid yet, that we just conducted in August, which is our annual SCBA inspections that get done on our air systems. That's $5,220. That hasn't been paid. That's pending.
Where does that normally come from?
That usually comes out of gear, which is, was an item in the, let's see what number it was. We had it in the 400 series.
I would think that if this is an annual appropriation you have to do, it should not be in the 400 series. It should probably be in a different line item.
And under services contractual, he started out with $55,000, which is, this is contracted out. I mean, he gets this contracted out by third party. And he's got, well, today, or I got it today, was almost $19,000.
$17,618.
That's current, okay, I just got this.
That's 32% remaining for the rest of the year. But if you took 5,000 out of that, then we wouldn't make it for the rest of the year. And there's money in the budget to pay for that expense, but then we would just, we would run out at the end of the year. We're at 32% in general contracting before the 5,000 expense.
Right.
So what would the total be that you would be asking for an expenditure out of Lloyd?
$7,676.74.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, does it make sense just to pay it out of that and make a one-time payment? Is it a lot cleaner doing that accounting-wise, or to move all these other funds? I mean, what makes sense to do?
Well, it'd be cleanest to pay the new right out of Lloyd. It's up to you guys how you want to handle what's already been done, or if you want to do the expenditures where there's...
I would prefer to wait to expend the dollars in the budget.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, or later, when we need to, if we need additional, because it seems like what's happened, we cut early in the year when we found out, but really we're not cutting our expenses. We're just going back to Lloyd, and we would have to reappropriate out of Lloyd, correct?
Yep.
Because it's not
So you
appropriated.
have to advertise.
So and then at the end, figure out what we're going to have, talk to the chief, and we probably should talk to the police chief as well, and then do one appropriation at the end of the year.
Around
If that's the way we're gonna
November,
have to go.
1st of December or
That's
something.
when we usually do it anyway.
And that's
Yeah.
fine. That's two strategies. If you guys wanted to wait till the end of the year, do one appropriation for any shortages that we have.
Yeah.
That's what we
No.
normally do.
I would,
and not-
but I would just say not any shortage. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
we hope that you and the other departments will try to cut back to where the budget cuts were. I understand some of it you can't, but the intent was to try to manage to those cuts, and that's I guess that's my thought.
And I don't disagree with you. I just remember we had a very frank conversation with the chief of both police and fire. Said, we're cutting all the capital, and then if you need something that needs to come out of Lloyd for any capital expenses, that's where we would take it out of. So if we're willing to work with them come November 1st and make sure they have money to do what they need to do, then I'm fine with it.
And the only reason I came tonight is I thought the plan was, as you need things, you come and request them to be paid out of Lloyd that were originally in the 400 series. So I guess that plan's changed to...
Well, I think that the 5,000 needs to be put under your contract. I don't think, if it's an annual expense that you know is going to come up, it should be under your contractual services. So just add that in next year, so that...
That in his budget for next year?
385. He's got 50, he starts out with 55,000 and 385. So, I mean, of course, we're almost into October, but he's right around $17,000, so it'll be close, but if he needs a little money to get him over the bump, I mean, we can consolidate that and towards the end of the year and make one maybe with other...
And a lot of those expenses, Mike, those are... the regular expenses that come out of there, we're going to be fine and have some money left over. It's the garage door fixes, the water break that we had up at Station 4, some different things, plumbing things. You know, dodging all of those, we're going to be fine and be able to absorb a lot of that. So it's just situation dependent. So for now, let's pay the 5,200. Well, the 2,400 that came out of 400 series.
You can get with
Out of
Amy on
265.
that, yeah.
And then the 5,200 out of 3. What we just had here. 363. 385. 385 contractual services.
Do we need a motion? Do we need a motion if this is coming out of the regular budget to switch stuff
I
around?
mean, if there's already, I mean, I guess it depends. If it's a transfer within the same series, then you don't...
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh,
Different series.
different series.
So we're good.
Approved motion, transfers different series with the same...
So then you just need to get with Amy? Yeah.
So the 400 might need a motion.
The 400 will need a motion because it's no longer there. It's going to be moved to the 385 series, correct? Or no, the 265 series is going to be paid out of 265, correct?
Yeah.
Prepare a transfer for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, the 5,200 we can just pay straight out of 300s and be done.
Okay.
Okay.
So she just needs to work it up and bring us next meeting?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Samuel, Councilperson Samuel.
I'll make a motion to approve 2013 OR 31 on the third reading.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2013 OR 31 on the third and final reading. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Deary.
Requesting approval of 2013 OR 32. This passed on the first and second reading at the last meeting.
I'll make a motion, unless there's any, to add the 2013 OR 32 on the third and final reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve 2013 OR 32 on the third and final reading. Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Merkless.
Ordinance was tabled at the last minute per the request of the applicant or the petitioner. This is an ordinance to rezone certain property located at 308 East Chestnut Street in downtown Jeffersonville. It's presently zoned M1, and the petitioner is requesting that it be zoned to M2. And is the petitioner here? Petitioner is not present. I would point out that this is a public hearing and has been noticed as a public hearing as well.
Is there public comment for anybody who might want to talk about this? Because I think I saw some stuff, some things written on there. Thank you. Okay, public comment is open. or the public hearing, I'm sorry, is open for the ordinance 2013 OR 38 and ordinance changing the zoning map. Mr. Christensen, would you like to speak?
We as a neighborhood are urging you all to vote this change down.
Could you go ahead and cite your address? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Dan Christensen, 405 Meigs Avenue. We're asking you all to vote this down. It's not necessarily so much as to what this guy has planned for this property. It's, once this zoning is changed, and if his plans don't work out, it's already changed, then anything can go in here that's changed that way. And we don't want another Rose Hill or another flop house or something in there, you know, which could very easily happen if the zoning is changed on it. Because it is not set up to do right now what he wants to do on it. And it's going to take a tremendous amount of money be invested in this for him to do that. And, you know, if something happens that he doesn't, then we're stuck with who knows what down there. So we're asking you all to go ahead and vote this down tonight, because the neighbors and all around here don't want to keep in limbo what's going on with it, and, you know, what are they going to do and all that too. They don't deserve that either. So we're asking you all to vote it down. It's not a good fit for the neighborhood. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tillo? Good evening. My name is Kelly DeTillo, 236 Meigs Avenue. As a member of the Franklin Commons neighborhood and as a parishioner at St. Augustine's, that building has been a non-used building for several years now. We are anxious about what could go in there. We're not necessarily concerned about this owner, this buyer, but again, like Mr. Christensen said, once that zoning is changed, we could have another Clark County Wellness Center move in. We fought the first one, and we saw what it did to our neighborhood. And we just don't want that kind of business moving back in around children. We had to have bus stops moved. I mean, it just is not a good fit for our downtown neighborhood, especially right there on the corner with all those churches, bus stops, and neighborhoods. It's just not a good fit. And what we're terribly concerned about is what could the building use be done if you change the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. Then I am closing the public hearing.
And just for the record, the petitioner or the applicant failed to appear.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we vote this down. It came to us through the planning and zoning as unfavorable in August 27, 2013. So I'd like
We'll need to make a motion to approve it and then vote.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you make that motion?
Okay. You want me to make a motion to
approve it with
approve with
anticipation?
anticipation of voting it down? The ordinance 2013 OR 38.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to vote in favor of ordinance 2013 OR 38 with anticipation of voting it down. All in favor, now let's get this right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Good job. All opposed? Aye. Motion fails.
That's tricky.
Okay, new business, Ms. Deering?
Nathan, you're really on. You're handing them down before we take it.
Kind of let us through that. I like it.
I'm glad. I was watching everybody's lips.
It was speak for anybody else did, didn't it?
I'll step in if there's any financial questions. Amy can. This is a new statutory requirement that the legislature implemented this year. There are certain reports that the Redevelopment Commission or the Department of Redevelopment has to issue. This is one of the reports that has to go to the City Council, and the City Council then has to submit this to the Department of Local Government Finance by October 1st. This year is the first year for this. This is all the information that's required. Next year, there will be more detailed information. And this is just a report regarding the TIFs, the various TIFs that we have, outlining what the balances were at the beginning, the money that was brought in during the course of the year, and then how much was expended and what the balance was at the end of the year. This is for 2012, by the way, for last year. So.
May I ask a question? Why is the Falls Landing TIF in, I'm assuming that means it's in the red if it's in parentheses?
It was in the negative at the end of last year until we closed on the reimbursement bond, which was done after the first of the year.
Okay, so now it's
Yes.
in the red. Okay,
We
gotcha.
closed on that first of the year and brought that back up to where it needed to be.
Okay,
In the black. So now it's in the black.
right.
It's in the, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's got money now,
Bless you.
so.
Are we supposed to take action, just accepting it, or?
Well, this is all news, so, and again, I've called up the DLGF, and I think Vicki has too. I think it's a simple motion to accept this report for purposes of submitting it to the Department of Local Government Finances.
So moved.
All it's required.
Have a motion and a second to accept this tax increment financing district's comprehensive report with the purpose of submitting to the, what did you say, Department of
Local Government Finance.
There you go, Department of Local, DLGF. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay. Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I was asked to place this item on the agenda regarding certain city boards and departments not following statutory, should be procedures. But, and as you know, we've discussed one of these issues before at this, at the public council meeting regarding, one issue is with the redevelopment commission approving leases, two particular leases to the Clark County Museum and the Fire Truck Museum for property that was originally acquired for the stormwater conveyance system. We discussed this before. I sent a letter as instructed to the redevelopment commission, to their lawyer, and also copied the Fire Museum and the Clark County Museum. I never received a response as far as the opinion that I offered to this council, that the proper procedures were not followed, that, in my opinion, because the use of this property that was originally acquired pursuant to the plan was for the stormwater conveyance system, and now these buildings were going to be converted into museum use, that pursuant to Indiana Code procedures, that because that's a change in the use, in my opinion, as some of these other projects must come back before this council to vote to approve that changed use of that property. And it was not done in this instance for the two museums, and I've not received any response back. So that's one issue to bring to your attention as far as where we proceed from there. I don't know if you want to do that issue first or talk about the second issue with the redevelopment commission. But then it's also been brought to my attention that a few months ago that the redevelopment commission has purchased property adjacent, certain lots, I can't remember exactly how many, either 2 or 3 property parcels adjacent to Duffy's Landing. That's not in any TIF area. There's not been any vote to amend any TIF area plan or redevelopment district to include this property. And it's come to my attention that they purchased these properties and placed restrictions for any development. So in my opinion, I believe that the redevelopment commission did not have the authority to purchase those properties outside of any TIF district or outside of any redevelopment district or whatnot. And then they're trying to put restrictions, for no development that is contrary to the role of a redevelopment commission. So those are 2 issues that have been, that I'm reporting back to you all to see what action you all would like to take or discuss options on what you all would like to see done regarding these issues.
Scott, have you talked to Shane Corbin about the lease issue, the zoning issue?
Yeah, I called Shane on Friday, and he said he was walking out of the office and would get back to me and review it, and I never heard back. I called him a couple extra times. I left a voicemail. I've not heard back from Shane on that. He told me he would look into it, call me whether it was even zoned appropriately, and I've never heard back from Shane.
Well, I believe that the Bales Building is zoned commercial, and I think in order to be a museum, it has to be zoned institutional. And I'm not looking at less, and it's not because, I just don't put you in the middle of anything because I know it's 2 different things. But part of that is a zoning issue, and it's not zoned properly. And if you remember with J&J Video, when the homeless group, Exit Zero, wanted to go in there, they shut them down because it was not zoned properly. And it seems like we have the same issue going on with the Bales Building, that it is not zoned properly. And I know I asked you to make sure that you contacted Shane Friday to find out what the zoning was and to see if it was proper, and he has not responded to you.
No, he has not.
I did stop and talk to Shane today, and it's not zoned properly. I pulled the map, or I pulled the map last week, but talked to him, and it hasn't been rezoned. None of the properties have been rezoned. So 2 of them are commercial, and one of them, I think it's commercial residential, I don't remember, but there's several pieces of property, but they have not went through the zoning process. And the sad part about it is you've got people down there that are actually spending money and doing things that really they've not went through the process. That's the unfortunate part about it.
Yeah, I mean, if that's true, in my opinion, then if it's not zoned properly, there should be a stop work order put out by the planning and zoning, as they normally do with any property that's not zoned properly. So that's another issue on top of whether, in my opinion, whether redevelopment could even issue the leases without this council's approval.
Yeah.
It seems regarding the leases that we've had a differing of opinion on whether they can or can't do that. If we get a declaratory judgment, is that a step we could do? We could seek to say you can or can't?
That is an option that the council could pursue. A declaratory judgment action would be filed in court, and you ask, usually it's between the rights and duties and powers and whatever of governmental entities, or including a declaratory judgment on the interpretation of statutes and so forth. So that is an option that could be pursued.
Who all does that involve? I mean, who would we make that against, or
Well,
just make it to the court, or?
Well, I mean, you have to file it again. You have to name a party as defendants. Technically, in a declaratory judgment, it would be technically, if you're alleging the redevelopment commission took action that is incorrect or improper, contrary to law, you have to name the redevelopment commission. And then what complicates the cases just a little further is that because they entered into the leases with the museums, you would have to name them as necessary defendants also.
What about the zoning issue?
Well, and technically the zoning issue, if you have a plan and zoning office or officer that's not pursuing the zoning code, then they would be added to that too. If that's an issue, you would have to add them as necessary defendants.
From a procedural standpoint, does the zoning issue, if it's not zoned correctly, then nothing could happen? And so do we need to do the declaratory judgment? Or what's the best way to proceed? Because we need to find out if it can be done.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess technically, I mean, ideally, if this is not zoned properly, I believe that if the plan and zoning would follow with their normal procedures and do a stop work order until it's zoned properly, then for the zoning changes would eventually come back before this council. Then in essence, then you would not necessarily have to do the declaratory judgment on whether they have the authority to enter into the leases. I guess the problem is will plan and zoning, will they pursue a stop work order? I've not received an answer back.
But even if it goes through planning and zoning, if I'm hearing you correctly, even if it's zoned properly, we still have the problem of whether the lease or whether redevelopment has the authority to release or sign that lease or not, correct? So we have 2 different issues.
It's technically 2 issues, yes.
But if they can't be done because there's no zoning, then there's no issue, because the leases are invalid, because they can't build there or redo because the zoning is invalid.
Correct.
We went through this. The bad part about it is we went through this with a business that's getting ready to spend $1 million in downtown Jeff. And they've been about almost 2 months and going through the same process. And I know it's slow, but they went through the planning and zoning and different things, and they're going through the process. And I think what's good for one is good for all. Set aside everything else. So.
And Mr. Merkel, I'm going to ask you, because you are planning and zoning attorney, what is your thought? Because if it's not zoned properly, what would you, as city attorney and as planning and zoning attorney, would you be willing to go to Shane and say this needs to happen so we don't have to file this lawsuit?
Well, I don't want to tip my hand.
I know. Oh, I'm not asking you to tip your hand. It's just it would save us time and money.
I mean, I have my legal opinion on this issue, and I'd rather not state it publicly.
Okay, I understand.
I state it to Scott privately.
I'm still talking about the zoning. I'm not even talking about the rest of it. I'm just talking about the zoning. Because that's going to have to be stated before the planning and zoning, because it has to come before planning and zoning for a zoning change. Okay. What?
I have a legal argument and also have a possible solution.
We're interested in solutions.
Yeah, we're interested in solutions.
Let's talk.
Well, I hope we follow the same procedures we did with J&J Video. I mean,
And we went through it with
We've
industrial
got-
air compressor.
Well, we just went through it this evening.
Yeah, so I think we need to stick with the way it's written and the process and the rules that everybody adheres to.
What if we do this, and I can't make a motion, so...
Can I ask a
and
question before a motion is raised?
I'm not going to make,
Okay.
I can't make a motion.
Okay.
So anyway, my suggestion is going to be this, that we go ahead and give our attorney the authority to file if we cannot reach an agreement, so we don't have to come back in 2 or 3 days to redo. But if we cannot reach an agreement with planning and zoning or with the attorney or whatever, hopefully his agreement will work. That way we don't have to have a special meeting to come back and, you understand what I'm saying?
And that's fine, except at some point, the construction needs to stop.
Yeah, the construction needs, yeah.
And I don't think Les can do that. I mean, but,
We
Yeah.
don't city attorneys for that one time.
okay. I mean, the construction stop.
Well, because
and-
of the rezoning,
Yeah.
not, yeah. It's not zone following. So,
Are you doing this on one issue or both issues?
So they're separate.
I think they're separate. But I don't know, how should it be done?
Well, I don't know, I mean, he's talking about potential discussion on the leases and solutions, but I mean, does that
Well,
involve the other one?
zoning, not
Oh, the zoning, okay.
I don't have a solution to it.
I think you need.
The other ones, okay, with the,
Okay.
okay. But even the Duffy.
Okay,
How about the
let
Duffy?
My question is, if, are we arguing, I know we're arguing over leases and zoning, but it would seem to me that before a property could be conveyed or leased out to a owner, that it would have to be zoned appropriate before we would ever enter into that agreement, correct? Because they would
That's what
know,
you would think.
I mean, it's,
Normally, there's standard language in leases that says
Contingent upon.
contingent or tenant is responsible for obtaining the property.
But you're going down the right path. It has to be correct before you actually start purchasing it.
but going on what you said, if the lease was signed under that contingency,
I have
and
it.
they are now theoretically under the process of construction without having the proper zoning and planning approval, then that's for you all to decide whether the contract is valid or not. I'm not an attorney, but, okay. All right, just want to make sure my mind's thinking straight.
Well, I need a motion.
I want to make a motion, but I'm not sure the direction we want to go. I do want to make, and guide me here a minute. I mean, we know the zoning, it has not been rezoned, I've already checked that, and it is not the proper zoning. So we need to file suit or something, I don't know if that's the term I want to use, to stop work until the proper process has been followed, similar to every other property in Jeffersonville that they have to go through the process, just like we did with 308 Chestnut.
Yeah, I mean, technically, it's called a declaratory judgment action. We don't file stop work orders, but it's called a declaratory judgment, and that would be part of what you're requesting, though, to try to ask the court to stop everything until this issue is resolved from a
So
declaratory
I want to make a
judgment.
motion, a declaratory judgment to have the courts decide on this with it not being properly zoned and with it not going through due process similar to other properties.
Right, and
Is there any direction about what Les said about, he says he supposedly has a solution
But that's just on the zoning.
on the
it's
zoning?
just on the zoning. isn't
Okay.
it? Well, are we just dealing with the zoning right now?
That's,
Okay.
yeah.
I think his concern is we don't want this group that's caught in the middle, we don't want them spending more money moving forward.
Well, you know, we have had numerous meetings with both the museum groups, and they knew where we stood.
Right.
So, I mean, they're caught in the middle, but they knew where the city council stood.
But I just want to make clear, so your motion is just to file something on the zoning issue, not on the authority of
Well,
leases?
do we have to do them
I'm going to do
separately,
them separately.
or do we do them at
Well,
once?
normally, normally,
Do it just-
they would not be separate actions, because even if there's a
I
zoning
think you need
issue,
to combine.
that's like count one, then you have count two on the issue of whether they were even, had the authority to do the leases.
Yeah.
So regardless if you do, even with a zoning issue, you still have to name the museums as necessary parties to the declaratory
Do you
judgment.
want to add that to your motion?
I hate it that the museums are part of this, I really do, because
Mike, I don't think we have any choice.
I know, but
We don't have any choice.
But
I
yeah,
know.
even if you just try to go on a zoning issue, they still have to be part of it. It doesn't...
Well, I want to condense both issues. I want to condense the process that we talked about, changing the plan, and I also want to include the proper, or not proper, improper rezoning. If that's the legal process we have to go through, that's what we have to do. It's unfortunate, but they're spending money that may not, I just don't think...
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and I can't follow the motion that we just passed, but
So just
so
to
if you want to
put-
reword it,
Okay.
Scott.
Well, I think it sounds like to me, he's authorizing me as the attorney for the council to file a declaratory judgment action regarding the issue of the leases, which would be against both the redevelopment commission and the two museums, on the
Okay.
issues of zoning, and then on the separate issue that the change in the plan, change in the use of the property was now brought back before the council.
Okay, and then, are there any other questions or comments? Because I have one. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Les mentioned that he may have a solution on the zoning. If you've
does?
got a solution, I suggest we allow him.
I'm not sure it's working.
It can always be withdrawn from the court. Could that part be withdrawn from the court if we reach a solution?
Of course.
Yeah, so
The cases
it
can
needs to
be
stand, and then if they
dismissed
withdraw
at
it,
any
it can
time.
be withdrawn.
That'll give us time to work on it.
My comment is this: I actually have a copy of the lease. If it's the correct one, it was signed August 1st, 2013. Is that the correct one? Okay. Just to make this clear, but the zoning, the tenant shall comply with the zoning code of the city of Jeffersonville and shall be responsible at its sole expense for acquiring any and all variances, special exceptions, or rezoning applications as may be needed to operate the premises as a museum. Landlord will cooperate in all ways necessary to support the tenant's requests, petitions, and applications for variances, special exceptions, and/or rezonings as may be necessary to operate the premises as a museum. So, the first part's not been done, the rezoning has not been done.
Yeah, but the key in
And
there...
we, as the landlord, have not followed through on making sure that it gets done. The city, not we, but the city.
Redevelopment.
All right. It's
In the
unfortunate.
declaratory judgment against redevelopment and the leases, we're asking for clarification on, number one, do they need to change the plan? Does that change of plan needs to come before the council before they can enter into a lease, correct? That's what we're looking for clarification
Well,
on.
technically, yeah, in part of the declaratory judgment, though, you're asking the court, if our position is they didn't follow proper procedure, you're asking the court to not only say that they need to come back to change the plan, but you're asking them to basically issue an order to invalidate the leases
Right.
until they come back.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
But this should give us a clear path in the future. We should know, from this judgment, we should be able to know how to move forward with leases
Yes,
on the redevelopment property that was purchased for the water conveyance system.
yes.
Okay.
It's-
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mess.
Okay, I've lost mine.
How you have the other?
Well,
Oh, the land. We've got the other issue on
The other issue, the parcels
parcels
that
on
were
the
adjacent to Duffy's Landing, that redevelopment purchase that were not located within a TIF district or a redevelopment district or
They got to be added.
economic revitalization area, was totally outside the district, so.
They're going to stand their ground.
So we need to make a motion for
And just to let you know also, I mean, if you pursue a declaratory judgment on whether they have the authority to do that, whether that's valid and so forth, you do have to name the parties who sold the property. They're necessary defendants too, so I just want to be clear, it's not just against redevelopment commission, you're naming, because if the court invalidates, they have, the third parties who sold the property have to have the right to be named in the suit to present, because they sold the property and received money. So, I mean, they have to be part of the case.
Scott, what does state statute say about purchasing something outside a TIF district? Is there state statute that says anything?
Well, I mean, it doesn't say
Guidelines?
like, I mean, it basically says, you know, you either have to, I mean, for the actions of redevelopment, I mean, if they're going to acquire property, it technically has to be generally inside their TIF district, yeah.
You know, I looked at the TIF district map twice
I know.
today, and there's not even a TIF
Unless-
district
yeah.
close to it.
Well, and I think Scott said earlier, there was a restriction put on the property that was purchased that says there can be no development. So why would it go before the redevelopment board to make that, and why would that property be acquired by redevelopment if there's not going to be any development on it, so.
Because redevelopment does parks as well, redevelopment statute.
That's for you all to argue out. That's why they get the big bucks.
Do we need to make a motion on that to go ahead and get it, file a declaratory judgment on the property, I guess, adjacent to or adjoining the Duffy's Landing, and the question on purchasing outside of a TIF district?
And not in the plan.
And
Pardon?
not being in the
And
plan.
not in the plan.
Yeah, and not in the plan?
Yeah, and technically that's not part of any plan, so.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
When was that property purchased, Scott?
I don't know the exact date. I was told it was, I mean, you're the attorney for the redevelopment. Do you know the exact date, Les?
Oh, so is that recent? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to file declaratory judgment against redevelopment on the properties purchased.
And technically, the landowners who sold the property too, they have to be named too.
And the landowners, because it was purchased outside the TIF district, as well as not being within the plan, that we think that should have had to come before the council. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, I need your thing down,
Oh, I'm sorry.
because I can't find mine.
Okay.
Council comments? Public? No, we've already done public. There's not any more. Council comments, Councilperson Smith?
Just real quick, there was an article in today's paper, Evening News, talking about back bills or money owed to the sewer department, and one of the comments made was the Haven House or Williams Shelter wasn't going to pay because the animal shelter doesn't pay a sewer bill. And I wanted to correct that. I've got billing that goes back to 2012 where the animal shelter, JB Ogle Animal Shelter, does pay a sewer bill. So that's not that's a Moog issue, and I just wanted to really clear that up. Like all other departments, they pay a sewer bill as well. That's it.
Ms. Gill?
I just want to say that I'm going to miss my first council meeting next time. I'm going to Indianapolis, myself and Dennis and Nathan and Vicki, so I sure hope we have a quorum, but we're going to IAC training in Indianapolis, so.
Well, I was going to go, but I guess I can't go.
Oh, man,
that ruined your
plans.
I missed my first meeting.
Councilperson Glover?
I don't have anything.
Councilperson Julius?
Yes.
Councilperson, sorry, I was expecting him to say.
I want to thank Les. This is a thank you.
Oh, okay.
A couple of meetings ago, I asked about mowing all the entrances and down there behind Frank's. It looks great, and I'm sure you did.
Did you mow it?
That new tractor?
You know, but it takes a messenger, and I'm thanking the messenger. So thank the workhorses or whoever did that. But it looks much better. Just an update on the utility box paintings that we talked about. On October 25th, 26th, and 27th, that's a weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're going to have that weekend for painting 10 of the boxes. And we'll try to promote it some way internally and maybe on our website and everything. But it should be exciting. So at the end of October, it's down 10th Street and down Spring. So you'll get to see those. And the last comment that I have is somebody asked me about are we recording our whatever we're in now, council meeting, and is it on TV? And because they haven't seen it, and I know we record it for the internet, but
The young people, I mean, we don't know.
who
Jeff High was recording.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Is Matt our contact with them, or
He
do we
was,
have? Do we
yes, he was.
need?
Told me that somebody new was going to be starting soon. So I
Okay.
don't know if that's in the works.
We may We may need to try to check that because I know a lot of folks do watch that at home, and they said they haven't seen it. So that's all.
All right. I just want everyone to know I was in Colorado this past week during the flooding, and my daughter went out to see Colorado University, and we got flooded out as well as we were going to visit Estes Park, and that didn't happen. And we have friends in Estes Park, and they had to be evacuated. So we need to pray for those people. When we left yesterday afternoon, it was raining and the rescue helicopters had to stop.
and there were still over 200 people missing. So we need to be lifting those people up in prayer as well, and the families, and plus the destruction of their homes. So anyway, anything else? Have a motion?
I'll make a motion.